Protection from liability is the real immunity problem. Bringing you what's ignored, sensationalized, unbalanced, misleading, or just plain false. Here's your media malfeasance for the week beginning October 18th. NPR continues to assert its opinion over news with this headline. The political fight over vaccine mandates deepens despite their effectiveness. So it takes a position right off the bat and then defends it rather than evaluate both sides. It says vaccine mandates are an effective tool in promoting widespread vaccinations. So is the goal widespread vaccinations or widespread health? NPR goes on to say the resistance to the mandates is a uniquely American predicament. Is it? Are we just going to ignore protests in Australia or in Europe? And then it targets evangelical Christians as part of the problem. Don't even get me started on that. It also doesn't address even once that part of the vaccine hesitancy might have to do with an immunity problem, the immunity from liability given to the makers.
Right now, pharmaceutical companies have total immunity for vaccines. They are not responsible for any adverse reactions or death from the vaccines. You get a vaccine and you're on your own. And so that's one of the things we're faced with here is this bold, self-righteous requirement that to protect people and require the vaccine, but no one is recognizing who's going to be responsible for the adverse reactions. And there are adverse reactions. I have a report in Medicare, out of Medicare, which is a very accurate report that shows we're having significant reactions and numbers of deaths. And so until somebody says they're going to be responsible, all we're doing is shoveling back off on the worker that if they get the vaccine and have an adverse reaction, they've got to take care of it themselves.
CNN gets confronted on its media malfeasance issue again this week. And Brian Stelter, BS for short, can't handle it.
Well, who's the people stopping the conversation? Who are they?
People that work at networks, frankly, like the one I'm speaking on right now, who try and claim that, you know, it was racist to investigate the lab leak theory. It was.
But
I mean,
who
let's
said
just
that
take
at
an
CNN?
example.
But I'm just saying that when you say allowed, I just think it's a provocative thing you say. You say we're not allowed to talk about these things, but they're all over the internet. I can Google them. I can find them everywhere. I've heard about every story you mentioned. Of course. So I'm just suggesting, of course, people are allowed to cover whatever they want to cover.
But you and I both know, and it would be delusional to claim otherwise, that touching your finger to an increasing number of subjects that have been deemed third rail by the mainstream institutions and increasingly by some of the tech companies will lead to reputational damage, perhaps you losing your job, your children sometimes being demonized as well. And so what happens is a kind of internal self-censorship. This is something that I saw over and over again when I was at the New York Times.
And an article linking COVID-19 vaccines and myocarditis goes poof. It was published on October 1st and then temporarily removed without explanation. Here's an excerpt. Within 8 weeks of the public offering of COVID-19 products to the 12 and 15-year-old age group, we've found 19 times the expected number of myocarditis cases in the vaccination volunteers over background myocarditis rates for this age group. In addition, a 5-fold increase in myocarditis rate was observed subsequent to dose 2 as opposed to dose 1 in 15-year-old males. And here's the notice. The publisher regrets that this article has been temporarily removed. A replacement will appear as soon as possible in which the reason for the removal of the article will be specified or the article will be reinstated. The article was co-authored by Jessica Rose. She says the removal was unheard of and that the journal it was published in is in breach of contract. And ignored this week, this letter from the National Institute of Health, which says EcoHealth Alliance violated the terms and conditions of its grant and corrects the lies of the NIH director and Dr. Fauci. Let's just wrap up this week with Joe Rogan doubling down on CNN's Don Lemon for trying to defend lying about Rogan's treatment.
See, because it used to be that way. They would say something and no one would have recourse.
Do you know what this is?
But when you're saying something, and then the person you're saying it about has literally 10 times the audience you do. You dumb. Do you know what you did? You just proved my point.
For KLIM.News, I'm Christy Lee.